He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Attention once again, citizens of fair Gotham. Welcome to Bat Minute of the Phantasm, the show that will investigate the animated classic Mask of the Phantasm 1 minute at a time. We're back in action, baby. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
I should correct you there, John. It's Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, the animated movie, I think is what they call it. I watched the trailer earlier today to be like, well, let's see what the trailer has to say. And it was like, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, the animated. It's like, okay, I get it, all right. But
was that name to tie it into the animated series, or so people didn't turn up thinking they were getting a live action film?
I think there was a lot of deliberate confusion going on with that trailer, quite frankly, because at the beginning it was all like, see the Dark Knight as you've never seen him before in his first cartoon feature film. You're like, but people just saw him literally like the last year in Batman Returns. Like, what?
Yeah, but it's animated.
Yeah, it's like, you've never seen him like this before. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure they did animated Batman before. They did a TV show, right? Like, no,
but it's on the big screen.
I think that was the pitch. But of course, oh, here I am. It's Namagawa. Sorry, we did that in the previous attempt at recording, and people don't know the behind the scenes thing. But we've had a time trying to do this episode.
Oh, but you've got to sing all the time now. That's now your thing. You're the singer.
It's going to be the operatic season of those.
Oh.
But I know there's a specific way they did the opera in these vocals, but we'll talk about throughout this episode. I was going to make a joke related to that, but it'll spoil the factoid that's coming up. And then,
I was really delighted to find out about that. So we will get to that. This is, of course, minute 1. And you might think, there's not going to be much to talk about in minute 1. Ha! You're wrong, sucker.
It's one of the most eye-opening parts of doing this season thus far, and we're only about to do the first week, is like the first 3 minutes are like, god damn, they zoom through. It doesn't feel like they're zooming through. It feels like this is just the pace of the movie. But like, first 3 minutes of every other season have been like, oh yeah, so you get the credits and then you get like a bit of setup for something. You might get Batman getting ready and that's about it. But this is like, you get all the credits and then you get an entire action sequence in the first 3 minutes. It's like, oh my god, animation moves briskly. It's a new era for us in terms of just having to get adjusted to like, we've never covered animation before. We've talked about it in like broad strokes in like a special episode about an episode of, whatever. But yeah, to go through, in some ways I'm kind of trepidatious in terms of like, will we have enough to, because we're not going to be people goofing off in the background to make fun of or anything. But
that's my main worry, because my favorite thing about doing these shows is laughing about things in the background and stuff like that. Yeah. And that's obviously not going to be here. So in a way, it's quite interesting, though, because it gives you, through doing notes so far, I found it gives you a different focus. Not better, not worse, just different.
You're not going to get hung up on Michael Goss' eyebrows. Not anymore. Not anymore. But,
R.I.P. Press F.
Yeah. Well, let's do it as our first season without the Goffster. And without Pat Hingle. We're truly in a new era with Batman here. But,
it's totally new. Everything we're doing is new, people. So, people might be joining in for the first time. So, hello.
Yeah, if you are, hello. Yeah, we in previous seasons had already hurtled towards what is now the future in this timeline, where we were on a film from 1997, but now we've been cast back, deep back in time, to 1993, where... It's good to know that you're getting cast back in time voice.
Yeah, that's the standard noise you make when you time travel.
It's kind of like, it's got a little bit Bill and Ted, but not quite. It was like that noise that Frank Gorshin kept making in the Riddler song that we covered on the Patreon. But every time it's like, but an elephant can have fleas, but a flea can't have elephants.
Oh, God. I love that song and I hate it at the same time because I just want to smack him. I'm like, oh, you smug little thing.
Oh, one of my proudest achievements is that they can no longer call him Baby Roommate. But people who have listened to previous seasons will know Baby Roommate was, a kid in the house that I lived in during recording, Killian. And his parents hate me now because I got him absolutely hooked on Frank Gorshin's The Riddler song. And they're just like, this is the worst song that has ever been released. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's the best thing ever.
That's the reason you don't live there anymore. They said, get out.
Yeah.
We can't take this anymore. The Riddler.
I'm currently broadcasting live from a Starbucks there for the remainder of the season. I'll just go back to my cardboard
sponsored
box.
by Starbucks. I wish. That'd be some sweet money.
Oh, man, yeah. There was a Movies by Minute podcaster, not naming names. It was sponsored by AdamandEve.com.
I want that sponsorship. Bring it on.
I would kill for an Adam and Eve sponsorship because you just get to make the ad yourself. So what couldn't we do with that? But
we could have a lot of fun, like we're going to have here.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Now, you've got a lot of history with this movie, haven't you?
Oh, yes. I'm actually specifically going to leave my history about it because it comes up more in episode 2. There's a specific moment in episode 2 that really kind of harkens to my relationship with Mask of the Phantasm. But I know you just saw it for the first time, John. You've busted your cherry with Mask of the Phantasm very recently there.
I have. Now, if you are listening for the first time, you might be confused about that. But I grew up with being obsessed with live action movies. I was never really an animated sort of fan until I was older, which is a bit strange. And when we started doing this show, I deliberately didn't watch this because I knew we were going to eventually cover it. So for the last, how long have we been doing this now? 6 years? I have not watched it by choice.
And knowing that it was coming up, that was always had in the back of my mind, would it be fun to do, because it's a murder mystery, to have, you go through it and not know who the Phantasm was? And then I was like, that would be a logistical nightmare, because every guest would come on and be like, so when you find out, and they'd be like, no, don't mention it, Jesus Christ.
It might work if it was an episodic thing that isn't minute by minute.
Yeah, but it would, eventually someone along the line would be like, well, we all know that friggin' Andrea Beaumont is the Phantasm. And they're like, what? That was her the whole time, jeez.
And you've just ruined it for the listeners now. What are you doing?
Fair though, there are people, I know that from listening to other Movies by Minute podcasts, there are listeners who tune in without having seen the movie and watch along. So I'm sorry if I did spoil that for you, but to be honest with you, there's no way we'd get through up until that reveal. We're going to have to talk about the fact that that's who that is.
If you change your mind in editing, you can just beep the name out.
But yeah. So, but what did you? Because I know though it's a highly acclaimed movie. It is I'm still always is it my favorite Batman movie? I think it might be. I think it is the best in many ways. But other times I'm like, there's so many good Batman movies now. So
I can see why you might think that though. It's probably one of the ones that gets closest to, I don't want to say to the comics because it's not. It's doing its own thing, but it's got it's closer to that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So I think if you came at it as a comic fan first, you'd be like, oh, this is great. Not to say that it wasn't great. I had a really good time watching this. I did really enjoy it. There's a couple of little nitpicks I've got, but there's nitpicks with every movie. Star Wars is my favorite, and I nitpick that.
I think there are kind of not structural flaws, but as we'll get into within this very episode, there's a reason why the movie is the way it is. In that it wasn't intended to be a movie originally, and things like that. But so that's in many ways you're kind of it's weird that the Joker shows up 45 minutes into it without any kind of just out of nowhere. It's just kind of a real what? But that is based on just they kind of. I'll say this in the most positive possible way. They kind of cobbled this film together, and the fact that it came out as good as it does is absolutely astounding. But at the same time, they're very incredibly talented people working on this, so it shouldn't be.
You can tell that it's made with a lot of love. The visuals were great. I think it looks really nice. We'll talk about that, a lot as we go. But Like this opening bit, it looks amazing.
Yeah, but before we even get to that, the begin at the beginning.
Yeah,
we of course then we got a new version to us of the Warner Brothers Shield, which is kind of it's weird for me watching it every time because it's part of this a side production of Warner Brothers that only began in 1992 called Warner Brothers Family Entertainment.
Yeah.
And every kids movie, like I think I remember Space Jam and Free Willy and stuff had it, where it's like it has the Warner Brothers shield, but it's the thing in the center is different, and then Bugs Bunny appears. And if you look up the logo, they specify that he does a Vanna White pose by the shield. And I only know Vanna White from our frequent guest, Klingon Vanna White. And I was like, oh, Vanna White must be like some old, like, maybe like a drag star from like the 80s, or it must be like an old supermodel or something. It's like, no, Vanna White is just the lady from Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
That's who she is. I was like, oh, it's a bit underwhelming to find that out.
I guess over here, our Wheel of Fortune lady wasn't as memorable. You know?
Yeah. Although the one who became a star was Carol Vorderman, but she wasn't Wheel of Fortune. She was like Countdown, which was the thinking man's Wheel of Fortune, because she was doing the same job, but she was also like amazing at math. Yeah. So when the people were like, all right, so I don't know how to do this. Carol, do you know how to do it? And she's like, of course I know how to do it. And would do these insane equations. That's going to alienate American audiences, but I can't get into explaining what Countdown, the game show is.
No, it's a good show, and I actually am surprised it hasn't been stolen by America. So if any TV networks are listening, there you go. Do a US adaptation of Countdown.
So I think a lot of American game shows are always very, very, very simple. And don't want to insult an entire country. But like it is kind of like, oh, Supermarket Sweep and Wheel of Fortune. It's just like it's a random game, it's a game of chance. But like Countdown is like, no, it's an intellectual game. Like it requires people doing proper mathematical equations and stuff, and then you at home trying to work out, can you do this? Like, no, of course I can't. I'm not that smart.
But this, I did look up quite a few movies they put out under this name, Family Entertainment. Because as you said, Free Willy, there's The Secret Garden, Black Beauty.
I remember in Community when they did an episode that was entirely just riffing on The Secret Garden, and I was like, oh yeah, it was really early on. I was like, man, this show is something. Like I never thought anyone would ever talk about The Secret Garden again, but here's an entire episode dedicated to it.
I forgot all about it. I'm gonna have to rewatch it now. I've brought it up. What else we got? The Iron Giant.
Classic.
Very popular movie. Pokemon the movie, which surprised me actually. I was like, oh right, I mean, it's in collaboration with I can't remember who the Japanese studio are, but yeah. Most importantly, of course, Space Jam, as you mentioned there. That's everyone's favorite movie of all time. But the first theatrical release under this branding was that weird American Dennis the Menace ripoff thing.
What, just the thing called Dennis the Menace?
Yeah. Now, I say a rip-off. I mean, I actually found out they were both born simultaneously, which is incredibly bizarre.
That's kind of weird now, talking about differences in American game shows and English game shows, and then been like, oh, Dennis the Menace over here is very different from the adorable always a little rapscallion, the Dennis the Menace in America, where like in England, Dennis the Menace, like, he's a little shithead.
He's like a punk.
He's a little ugly piece of crap, and he's remorseless, and he's just like harassing everybody.
He's a horrible. He just like beats people up and steals things.
And he's got a
like a little dog. Yeah,
he's got a dog that's worse than him. And then over in America, like, no, Dennis is like a little cute little guy. He's just an innocent childhood kind of thing. He doesn't mean to be that bad. Like over in the UK, no, he means to be that bad.
Well, I mean, before they folded this into regular Warner Brothers as well, they actually did one other thing that's quite interesting. Let me think how to word this. I've written down notes, but bullet points. They sort of covered VHS releases of older movies that came out before there was a family label. But because they were reissued on VHS, they would then slap with the label. So you get a bunch of classic movies with this new branding on, like Calamity Jane, Willy Wonka. This one that got me, Bugs Bunny's third movie, 1001 Rabbit Tales. What a title. Never Ending Story, Goonies, Quackbusters as Daffy Duck.
All
Dogs Go to Heaven, Never Ending Story 2. Oh, God, loads.
It's just, when did they stop keeping count of the Bugs Bunny movies? Like, are they up now to like Bugs Bunny's 65th movie?
I know, yeah, what the hell?
It's like, we're not counting the shorts, obviously, as well, because the men now be in the thousands by now.
There is actually one that's vaguely tied to what we're doing here as well. They did put out Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman was branded as this as well on VHS. So it's Warner Brothers Family Entertainment.
Yeah, it's a show now that gets more difficult to hold on to cherished memories of the more Dean Kane continues to exist. But Terry Hatcher's still good. Terry Hatcher's still great, guys.
Hey, and Dean Kane, you know what? He might be... How can I put this diplomatically? He might be peculiar now, but you know what? It means we can watch it through a different lens and laugh at him. If I'm watching it and making fun of Dean Kane, that's fine.
Yeah,
but he was my Superman. I always liked that more than the movie.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah, definitely. That's why that's still to this day. I was thinking about who's the best Lois Lane? Terry Hatcher. That's like it's still to be surpassed. But I will say though, because this been up at the front of the movie. Slightly bugs me a little. Bugs. I
was going to make a joke about that when you finish the sentence.
But it's just because it doesn't... we've talked, obviously, at the beginning of every season, we've had to mention, Tim Burton gave out about the fact that they were, he had to bend over backwards in the 89 movie to alternate the Warner Brothers logo. They were very, very protective of it. But he blended it in perfectly. And then that happened in Returns again. And it happened in, Schumacher friggin' morphed it into the bat symbol in Batman Forever and stuff. And the thing is, that continued in animated tradition, but in the opening, the absolutely amazing, classic, wonderful opening of the Batman animated series, Batman the Animated Series, BTAS, as it should forever be known within the confines of this podcast.
That sounds like a qualification over here in the UK, doesn't it? Oh, I've got my BTAS.
Yeah. Let's just start saying that to people now, just because while we're talking about the season, I'll be like, yes, I'm Mr. Niall McGowan, PhD, BTAS.
I can say to people, yes, currently I am studying my BTAS.
Yeah. But we've talked about on Patreon episodes where we have talked about the animated series, just that opening sequence of the animated series is absolutely phenomenal. And they have the thing of the Warner Brothers shield, and it fades in, turns into a blimp, and then it goes in. And I understand why you can't do that here, because, as we'll talk about, the music is different because the animated series was originally using variations of the Danny Elfman theme, so that's why is and so you can't. I guess you can't just cross that over, and I guess they didn't even really think to, because this just feels popped on to the beginning to be like, hey, it's a kids movie. It's got Bugs Bunny. He's in the tux from the outfit he wears in the Bugs Bunny show. Where this is it, the night of nights. Like, he's getting you ready to see a show, kids, and then it goes into Mask of the Phantasm, which is not that kind of movie at all. So it just feels like a very jarring, somebody should have said to them, and I guess they just didn't have the power. They're just it's just an animated freaking cartoon. We did the cartoon. Just do what you're told, people. Just freaking stick the logo on the front instead of trying to organically blend it into the atmosphere of the piece like you did with your critically acclaimed cartoon show.
Yeah, it's an odd one. Like you mentioned there, the strange tonal kind of thing. And obviously we'll talk about this a lot as we go. But it's acceptable for kids, this movie, but I wouldn't call it a kids movie. It's strange. I don't know. I bet they probably had a hard time marketing it in some ways, because the plot is very adult. I don't mean that in it's sexual. I just mean it's a very serious, crime drama.
Well, that's the thing. I have a baby roommate, Killian. He loves BTAS, but the episodes he wants to watch are Killer Croc and Man Bat and things like that. And so when I've mentioned Mask of the Phantasm to him in the past, it's always been I don't think you'd like it, kid, because the Joker's in there, but he doesn't show up till near the end. Yeah, and the rest of it is just Bruce Wayne dealing with feelings. Immensely so, and there's another villain around, but he doesn't get to do anything crazy, he does crazy things, I guess, but he's I would say too, it is also the people involved in making this were making their own thing, and then the Warner Brothers suits were just okay, slap that logo in the front and just put part of that to the kid. But that's the whole show. That's like I've been rewatching BTAS in preparation for the season just to see, because I want to, and two, you never know, there might be something important might pop up, and the amount of episodes, even very early days, where you're like, this is not a kid's show. Like, not that it's inappropriate for kids. There are things in it that are inappropriate for kids, but there's a lot of stuff that's just like, kids wouldn't care about the moral quandary of a gangster reminiscing about his his past trauma, seeing his friend getting hit by a train. Like, they wouldn't.
That's the thing. That's very geared to adults, right? And that's the same here. Like, not just the tone, but also the pacing of this.
Oh, totally. And also too, just again to go into like. The music they put up here at the beginning, too, is like, that's the thing, Joe, because I've only now cemented this in my mind. You hear that music, what do you think it is?
What do you mean? In what context?
Like, I mean, when you hear like, like what does, in your mind you go like, that's the...
Oh, I think of, what do you call them? My brain doesn't work anymore. What are they fucking called? Let me look up their name.
Not like the Animaniacs.
Animaniacs!
Oh.
Yes! I couldn't remember their name. I think of Animaniacs.
It's like sort of the seminal part of my childhood. Because I remember you at one point poo-pooing Bugs Bunny and Animaniacs way years ago. And me being like, this is what I was raised on, man. This is proper like slimy mud hole. My home this is.
Well, again, I'm not saying they're bad. It's just as a kid, I didn't like either of them.
Yeah.
Maybe the Animaniacs I would like more now. Because I'd probably get the jokes more now I'm older.
Oh, yeah. This is like, because they did that relaunch of it. Like, they rebooted it in Hulu. They're not too long back. And I rewatched some of the old episodes, and there's a lot of jokes. I was like, I wouldn't have a goddamn clue. No kid would know what that was. Like, that's a reference to, like, a movie from the 1950s. Like, why would you think people would get that? But again, the Warner Brothers animation department, we're just doing it for ourselves. We're just doing it for the hell of it.
Well, I think that's the best way to do it. It's a bit like us with this show. We do it for ourselves, and it's nice that people enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. But yeah, this music is very specific. Because I was in my mind, it's like, oh, that's Looney Tunes. But no, Looney Tunes is... But I was like, I know this music. And it's very specifically... It's not a Warner Brothers theme normally, because... Warner Brothers always messes with their fanfare. Because, 20th Century Fox and stuff, it's like a standard. It's classic. But Warner Brothers will occasionally, it used to be that...
Oh, yeah.
The one that ballsed up the beginning. If you ever buy the Gremlins soundtrack, and it's got that amazing opening, the synth cats at the beginning, and the really atmospheric opening music in the movie. And it's ruined because the Warner Brothers fanfare is at the freaking start of it, and you can't get it out of there, goddammit. But, but then I remember in the Batman Returns, friggin' the VHS that had like a really crappy synth version of it too. Warner Bros. Always messing around with their fanfare, but no, it's not even that. This is very specifically the Merry Melodies theme.
Oh,
which was it's actually
I remember that.
It's because Merry Melodies wasn't strictly Bugs Bunny back in the day. It used to be like particularly the first time it was ever used. Was in a thing called Billboard Frolics, an old cartoon, which basically starred Eddie Cantor, but not Eddie Cantor. The history of the song is like, Eddie Cantor is like, he was an old song and dance man. And people nowadays might remember him mostly as being a side character in Boardwalk Empire. Every time you go into like Nucky Thompson's club, he'd have this guy, Eddie.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember him now, yeah.
Yeah, and he was just like the kind of, the Billy Kent, one of Nucky's girls, she'd perform with him and like, old thing, touch on Cayman's Day, like really old-timey 1920s songs. And Eddie Cantor, back in the day, was like the biggest star in the world. And he apparently offhandedly wrote, there was a failed Broadway musical, not even, a failed Broadway show called Merrily We Roll Along.
Good name.
And then Eddie Cantor just wrote a song to kind of cash in that called Merrily We Roll Along. Didn't even bother really recording it himself. Cast it out into the ether. And then I think he sang it like once on his radio show. And it's weird hearing it because it's proper like old-timey singing. But it is the theme of like, merrily we roll along, my honey and me. Like, merrily we roll along, as happy can be.
Oh, okay. I didn't know there were words to go to the tune.
Yeah. And then eventually it was just like Fritz Freeling, like old-timey animator, was like, I like that song. just yoinked it, and then put it in. I don't know what legal, things happen where if you could just take it and run or whatever.
Back then, you probably could.
Yeah. Because then it ended up becoming like, all right, they put it in Billboard Frolics, which is basically a cartoon of a billboard of Eddie Cantor singing about another billboard across the way and been like, this guy and me, we don't get on. And this early animation, kind of like, it's very surrealist, but it's also kind of like, I don't know if anyone would enjoy watching this, quite frankly.
I love the way that voice you're doing is sort of like the American version of, what's his face who does When I'm Cleaning Windows? George Formby. George Formby. I was going to say Norman Wisdom. That's a completely different man. It's like that. It's the American version of that, isn't it?
I don't know if it was it the microphones back then, or just that every singer thought you had to sing like this, like without the corner of your mouth.
I think it was put on, because old newscasters used to have very specific voices. Like,
yeah.
I remember my friend at work was showing me this video he found from like British Pathé, from back in the day, and they're doing that very old fashioned voice, and they're also talking about something very inappropriate. It's basically saying this new train is very big. It's very big doors, and the guy's like. He's like, the doors are so wide you can... what was it? The doors are so wide, a fat man with 2 suitcases can fit on board. It's like, what?
No, it is like the old BBC productions where it's like, it's like, who is this very clipped man? Do they talk like that in real life? Is this?
I'm pretty sure nobody ever did. But it continues to this day. I imagine Americans have a similar thing, but here are sports, announcers. They do like a voice. There's like, it's the football guy voice. There's like a sound to them.
I'm doing a voice for this podcast. Like, I don't normally talk like this, but like,
well, you do. Just a little different. It's a little different.
But the other thing is, so eventually, it's on this Billboard Frolics, and then eventually they just start. We just got a new line of cartoons called Merry Melodies. Pop it on there, and so much. Like, that's why I'm not too sure if there was any kind of legal ramifications for it, because apparently on his deathbed years later, Eddie Cantor, like, they're asking him like, so what do you think's like the high point of your career? And he's like, well, I thought it was really nice that you used one of my old songs in those cute cartoons. I kind of get the vibe that he was just like, someone told me that those cartoons have one of my songs on them. But, I don't know if he was getting paid for it or like what was happening there.
I mean, he should have been paid regardless, right? But that's also kind of sweet. Like, I thought you were going to say he cursed them on his deathbed. A pox on you.
It's in a bizarre twist. Like, everything I've read about Eddie Cantor says that he was like the nicest man in the world, and just because it's back in the day, you're like, I'm sure he must have been a monster, because all celebrities were.
Was.
A lot of them still are, but like apparently he's like, no, a real humanitarian, really lovely man, Eddie Cantor. So it's nice to know that Looney Tunes is relatively safe in that regard. That there's no negative associations, except for me going like, having Merrily We Roll Along at the beginning of Mask of the Phantasm. Doesn't quite gel for me.
In fact, you said it ruined the movie. It ruined the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. But,
the tone and, targeting it at kids and stuff. I thought when I was doing some basic research that the original idea for this movie made even less sense as a kids' film. Because what I found was the original plot was to have Batman being captured by his enemies at Arkham Asylum, facing a kangaroo court in which the villains try him for, making them what they are.
Yeah.
And they thought it was too brainy and stuff, so they make it into like an episode of the show, don't they?
Yeah, that's Trial. It's a great episode too. Yeah, we should cover it for the Patreon sometime.
Oh, definitely, especially now we've brought it up here, because I mean that sounds phenomenal. That sounds great. Wonderful idea. I think I've seen a couple of comic books with a similar plot to that, but even less appealing to children, I would think, than what you get here.
I think it might have been more appealing to kids just in that, like, it's got the Mad Hatter in it. And it's got it's Poison Ivy and Two-Face. Everybody's here. The gang's all here, But
it is also kind of dealing with their trauma. And I suppose what you could do to make it exciting for kids is whenever they're talking about things, it goes to flashbacks of their battles with Batman.
Yeah.
And I don't mean use clips from the show. I mean, like, make new stuff, but it's flashback in the movie.
Yeah, to me, it strikes me as more being like, that sounds more like a movie to me than this, in terms of being like, oh, well, this actually is a classic kind of story for a movie. But like that one always struck me as being like, no, I could see that being the pitch, because it's just like, we got all the crazy characters and kids just like seeing them on screen. So as long as, friggin' Mr. Freeze is there in the corner, they'll be happy. They don't have to do anything.
That's not a bad way of looking at it, actually. I didn't think about that. I suppose, because then you'd have the brainy elements for the older audience and keep the kids happy by just going, look, Mad Hatter.
Yeah. I mean, like, back when I was a kid, like, the story of, Batman Forever didn't matter to me. Like, I didn't really get the whole, what Edward Nygma was doing with the box and all that. It was just like, the Riddler's here. He's doing crazy stuff.
And there's weird lights all over the place. It's green. Cool.
Yeah. But yeah. The kind of foundation of this movie is just so, as I mentioned there earlier, the fact that it wasn't really intended to be a movie per se, it kind of becomes more apparent as it like, so, just to set up a basic sort of parameter of what we're getting into here, is that, of course, you have Batman the Animated Series is doing phenomenal on TV. Everyone loves it. Blah, 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 blah. And then we roll into this opening credit sequence here, and it's all CGI Gotham. And it's like, that's new. Like, we wouldn't see that in the live action movies until Batman Forever. Like, when they, like, weirdly enough, them going into Nigma Tech and stuff, or not Nigma Tech, Wayne Enterprises at the beginning. And it was I remember George Hendricks was on making fun of how bad it looked. And I was like, looks solid to me, man. I don't know. But yeah, basically what it was, one of the people working on the show, Alan Burnett, was creating that sequence to be a virtual map for the show that they could use to save production costs. So instead of having to hand draw everything, they just said, we got this virtual map of Gotham. Just integrate that, and there you go. That works great. Absolutely fantastic. They never
that is a genuinely great idea.
Yeah, and particularly too because as the show went on, it infamously tried to cut costs, and that's why the animation began to suffer when they brought it back. Like, and they try to simplify all the designs to make it easier and stuff. But he's doing this, and he's just like, it looks pretty good, right, guys? And apparently, just some Warner Brothers suit just walks in and sees it, and he's like, we should make a movie of this. That'd be great. And then they're like, okay. And,
sure.
Yeah, and Alan Burnett, he's the guy who was like, we'll make a movie. Let's go and make a movie, guys. And so eventually then they're like, okay, so straight to video. So that's what we'll pad out episodes we were planning to do and make that into a movie. Eventually settling on this storyline.
Oh, I know where you're going with this because I found this out.
Yeah. And so they're deep into production. And everything's like, it's going great. They have no problems whatsoever. And then Bruce Timm, a man we'll mention many times throughout the season, one of the guys behind the entire show. He's over in Asia, overseeing some of the animation. And like as they're deep in, going like, everything's looking fantastic for this, straight to video production. He's just told like, now they want it to be a theatrical release.
At the last minute, basically.
And I've got a quote here from him and Eric Radomski, who was one of the other directors who was with Tim at the time. And the quote here says, literally the last day when I was in Asia, I got a call from our vice president at the time, who was the money guy. And he said that Warner decided they wanted to release it in the theater. And my jaw hit the floor, and not in a good way. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? We designed this to be on video. That means a whole host of problems in terms of technical and quality. You guys are out of your mind. And then Tim said, that means we have to change the aspect ratio because we storyboarded the entire film for the TV aspect ratio, which back then was square.
Yeah, before 4:3, wasn't it?
Yeah. So how are we going to finish this movie on time without having to reboard every single shot? And so while we were there, Eric and I, on a piece of paper, cut out the Academy aspect ratio on a sheet of paper and laid it down on top of the storyboards and went, okay.
We can make it work, I guess.
And up until very recently, Bruce Timm still says, people ask him about Mask of the Phantasm, he says it makes him cringe.
Oh.
Because he just says, like, it was formatted for the old school TV ratio, which was just a square. And so when I look at the movie, I'm like, it's 90% there. Like, why didn't they tell us sooner and we could have made it look better?
It is cheeky, that, because there's a lot of stuff, as he says, that goes into it going to the cinema. That's a totally different medium back then. Like, it still is now, but even more so then. That's a wild thing to do to them. And then it ends up being a failure at the box office anyway, because they did it all last minute, didn't promote it properly.
Yeah.
It loses money until home video.
It's so bizarre, though, just in terms of the actual timing of everything, because it's like Batman, the animated series, Beat-Ass, premieres in September of 1992, and this premieres on Christmas Day of 1993. So considering they're making like 60, I think the original series was like 68 episodes or something.
Holy crap.
And then they added on another season. And like we didn't complain last season. We just stated as being an objective fact that the reason the quality dipped so much between Batman Forever and Batman Robin is because they just didn't take the extra year to actually produce the thing. They just zoom in from like, all right, 95, Schumacher's making A Time to Kill. You'll go straight from that into Batman and Robin, get it out for summer of 97. I was like, maybe you should have taken a little more time. So again, it's still astounding, though. I guess it just speaks to the quality of people making the movie. That, in the middle of making a friggin', giant TV show, they were told, oh, by the way, you're also making a movie. And it's out next Christmas. and go and get it done.
And then they end up putting out a movie that pretty much everybody loves in the end. I mean, obviously, it took a little while to get people on board. But yeah, I mean, like, I've got a quote here from Michael Uslan. I can never pronounce Uslan properly. He says, Mask of the Phantasm is possibly the best Batman movie ever made. It certainly has the best story. That movie will always stand up against time, and it's a testament to the quality of the show that Bruce Timm launched in 1992. Yeah.
That's it. And everything about, like, everybody was working sort of like, ass to the pavement, basically, the whole time. They were just flat. That's why, like, usually it would be a sign of trouble when you see, like, multiple writers and multiple directors and stuff. But it's more like, no, that's just basically what they had to do is, like, you got all these directors on the show. All of you guys are making this movie because you can direct a sequence, and you can direct a sequence, and you can direct a sequence, and then also go off and direct episodes of the TV show at the same time. And I think they threw it together in, like, a $6 million budget. And I think it was all cobbled together in about 8 months. Which, again, considering the score, the level of animation, and just the actual story being that good, it's just like, I guess you got everybody on a good day when you signed off this project, because that should be a disaster. And yet here it is. So
on paper, it should be like the worst thing we've ever watched.
But yeah, with that in mind, though, let's we're past the Warner Brothers Shield, I guess. Let's get into the digital space of Gotham here.
Hell yeah, it looks amazing, doesn't it? Oh, and the music coming in as well. Great animation, great music, phenomenal introduction to the movie. I thought it just looked beautiful. Yeah,
it's just really terrific, and I love too that it's like it's Shirley. We'll talk about Shirley Walker more as we go on, but there's like you understood the assignment here in terms of like, well, it's cinema, right? So you got to up it a little bit, and it's just it's the level of the tone of when it's actually establishes the title of Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. It goes like it feels to me like it goes like an octave or like a key above. Because instead of dun 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 dun, it's like a real dun 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 dun. Like, it's really like, it's, oh my god, it feels so friggin' dramatic. Like,
this is a movie, people.
And it's just such there's the rolling drums at the beginning of the. Weirdly enough, they kind of retooled it for when they did. Again, when they had to swap everything over mid, run of Batman, Beat-Ass, and then they renamed it The New Adventures of Batman and Robin, or sometimes just The Adventures of Batman and Robin. And then instead of having the Elfman theme over the end credits, because it used to be the variation of dun 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 dun, they changed it to a variation of this, and it doesn't sound right once you've heard Mask of the Phantasm, because it has this kind of boom 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 boom. You're like, but where's the drama? Like, where's the rest of it?
Yeah, it almost sounds defeated.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
It really sounds like this is the poor man's version of that theme.
It's like, here we are, kids. Hey.
Yeah. And notably too, they said to put up, the title, which is a thing they didn't do in the animated series, of course, as well. That had the opening sequence, went up, you just saw Batman, and the lightning flashing behind him. It was like, that's what you need. What you need, a freaking draw you a diagram, kids. It's freaking Batman.
Oh, but what a font! That's the nerdiest thing I've ever said in my life. What a font!
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm very happy that in designing the logo for the season, managed to find that font too.
Yes,
very got that exact specific font. So.
I think we should make, obviously we'll have our logo t-shirt out, but I think we should just have a plain t-shirt that just says Batman in that font.
Yeah, why not? It's on my computer now. I got it ready to go. So.
Some people like plain merch, don't they? They don't want it to be too flashy. So we'll offer you that, people. We're nice.
Yeah. It's but that is Plaza. You call that font. Apparently it was originally called Playboy.
That doesn't suit it.
And then I think they retitled it because it's supposed to be designed after Art Deco kind of lettering. So.
No, totally. Like that's why I think I like it so much, because it goes with the look of the city. The city is like it's a combo of Art Deco and Gothic, which makes perfect sense. Obviously, that's Batman in a nutshell. Yeah. And the font matches that. It's weird. Like everything's working in sync.
Oh yeah, everything. It's a beautifully manufactured and functioning machine. Everything about that show and this film. There's literally no notes. Like it might be a trouble doing a podcast where I'm just like no notes.
No notes.
But it's the fact that they present the title, but they give it that extra da, 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 da. Like it's like, well, we have to put a title on screen this time, but you might as well give it a bit of oomph while you're there. And from that, then we roll into some vocals there as well.
Right. I had the first thought that everybody had when I Googled this. I thought, it's Latin. So I Googled what are the lyrics in Latin, and then of course I found out it's not Latin. Do
you want me to?
I was going to leave that to you because I've got the info in front of me, but you're even more well versed in this.
Oh well, no, it was just like just for the sake of fun that Shirley Walker decided to go just get all the names of everybody in the orchestra, write them backwards, and then that's now the lyrics. So it's everybody who was working on the music's name, but just in reverse. So
it's brilliant, that, isn't it? And also another reason she did it, I've got a massive quote from her. I can't read it. It goes on and on and on. But another reason is because she says here, this little bit I've got, she said, as you know, the music team is rushing to the finish line as a film is in its final dub phase. Even the known orchestrators are not always given the credit they so justly deserve for ensuring the timely execution of the score. I've become tired of fighting for credits for the support team that helps pull me through the final throes of recording and mixing my scores. So this was a way of a kind of getting credits in there for people as well.
That's like Bart Simpson trying to show everybody, like, no, I work on the Krusty Show. Look, it says Betty Symington, but like, no, I worked on Mask of the Phantasm. Look, they hear him say my name there now. Like, it's all about like the one.
It's such a cool idea, though.
We will have to actually let's see if we can get it, and then do you think someone on YouTube would have done this by now? To get that track and then reverse it. And then see when I hear like Roger Livingston. Oh wait, no, it wouldn't be in that. It'll be the opposite, the opposing of the Batman theme. So I was gonna try to sing that off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to do. Actually,
I physically cannot. No. So, but in theory, it should be coming out like people's names. Then I guess
it might sound really weird though.
Yeah,
it won't, like when you reverse your voice and when you speak backwards and try and reverse it again, I used to always do that when I was a kid with I got a microphone for the computer. It was exciting. Oh my god, a microphone.
I thought you were going to talk about that friggin' thing from Home Alone too. It's like, of course you would have that, John. Of course. It's like every kid in my town wanted it. You couldn't get it because it's so goddamn expensive, but of course you had it.
No, I didn't. I always wanted it as well. Always. I always saw it in the Argos catalogue and I was like, I want that. I never got one.
I think I was the thing then the parents had to explain, like, well, kids, I know you think Kevin McAllister is like you. But the thing is, he's very rich.
Very, very rich.
His family is massively wealthy. And so he can afford to get that as a present. but you never will be until you go and get a job and then put money aside to buy it yourself.
And now, of course, we're at the point where you're like, well, I could buy it, but why?
Well, now you just do it on your phone. So it's like, well,
but it doesn't look as cool.
Yeah. You should be able to get a phone cover in the shape of that thing.
Yeah. Oh, no, that would be amazing.
Although it's a massively chunky thing to be a pain in the ass having to try and put that in your breast pocket so you can listen to a podcast.
I thought I had a list of all the names, but I've only written down some of them because it's in a big quote. The first one she comes up with is "Oh Nalimot," which is Tom Milano.
You're going into temple to do it. Kalima.
But it sounds a bit like that, doesn't it? Yeah. So, because he was the music editor for most of the things she worked on. They worked together on the Flash TV series and things. So she's like, well, he's going in. Yeah.
I think that was I mentioned to you off mic at one point, but listeners will know if we manage to successfully put it together. But it was saying our little sting at the end of every episode this season should be us saying something in reverse. In that tone, and it's like, that's all good in paper, but can we pull it off? Let's see. You can flash forward to the end of the episode right now, kids, and see if it happens, and you'll go and do it. It's just me going, no.
Oh, I really hope it works. I really, really do, because it would be so cool.
It would be great, though, at the end of every episode of the season, it's just me going, no. And people forget why it's there.
I love this as well. She says, people, she got a call from the legal department of Warner Brothers saying, what language is that? And what's being said? So she just lied to them. She said, people involved didn't want to dob her in. They didn't want to, grass. But they also didn't want to be, as she says, party to her saying, screw Warner Brothers. Yeah. So she told them it was just a nonsensical choral language that only existed in orchestration books. And they were just like, okay.
That's a good lie, though. That's a real, because then you're like, oh, if I say Latin, then I'll lead to something else. If I say it's in Greek, it'll lead to something else. It'll be, But then just come up with it's a made up language that doesn't actually exist, which isn't even technically a lie. So it's just like, well,
it's genius. Yeah, I thought that was so cool. And she said she spent more time coming up with that plot, that scheme, than she actually did working on the score in the last couple of weeks.
That's gonna be how many hours did you spend there sitting just pondering that to her death, rubbing her chin? What the hell was?
It's amazing.
Yeah, I do like the idea though of Warner Brothers brass coming down and all these people have been like, "Hey, you worked in that score. What language is that?" And then people have been like, "Fuck you, I ain't no rat," and just walking away, making it seem way more suspicious than it is.
Oh, actually, you know what? I've just discovered something reading through a quote. I didn't notice this when I actually made my note. I think, from what she's saying here, if I'm interpreting it right, they originally sang all the names forwards. Because it says here, everyone on the music team has a tape of the singing of their names. We transferred to 1/4-inch tape and played it backwards. The old back masking trick.
Yeah.
So that makes it sound like all the singing was done forwards, right?
That's the Twin Peaks trick of the little man from another place going he's speaking backwards, but we backmasked it and then it comes out forwards, and they've just done it we sang it and then we reversed it. But also means that they would have had to have done the insurmountable thing in my mind of figuring out the melody backwards.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know if that's 100%. I can imagine it would be much easier to just write out the names backwards.
That makes more sense to me.
Because then you think at one point there would be a weird, a glitch on the tape at least or something. You'd hear a little, something to indicate that it was actually backwards. So I think that might be a little bit of a, it was already a good story, but they're putting a hat in a hat by being no, it was actually recorded forwards and then we reversed it. You just wrote the names downward and then just made choir singers, choral singers, who are used to singing Latin and stuff, and they're just doesn't have to mean anything to us.
I'm going with what you're saying as well, because I'm sure I saw a different quote where she was explaining how she wrote it down phonetically and things.
Yeah. Unless they tried it that way, and they're just there might be a recording, and then they're oh, this is a disaster. So that's all right. So can we just write it out? Oh, that's much easier. Let's just do that.
Although when I mean, feel free to cut this bit if you want, because we might go backwards. But you mentioned the story of that. And that then made me think about the credit we get coming up, about the story by.
Yeah.
By Alan Burnett. So as I am wont to do, I researched him a little bit.
Yeah. I think him getting story by also seems very like, in all the behind the scenes stuff, they're always very much like, yeah, this is Alan's baby. I don't know if they're in the mode of like, if this balls us up, we can just blame it entirely on him. Like, you want this, didn't you, Burnett?
Well, I mean,
you and your stupid CGI thing. You doomed us, you idiot.
If it was gonna work with anyone, I would assume, yeah, he's a good choice, though. Because when I looked at what he'd done, I mean, he'd worked on a lot of Batman-related stuff. Return of the Joker, Mystery of the Batwoman, Gotham Knight, Under the Red Hood, Year One, Bad Blood, Killing Joke. All of those, I mean, obviously not all of them by this time. Yeah. But over the years, he's so invested in this world. So he's a Batman head, so to speak, and he's kept that up. So it wasn't just like a job to him, I don't think. Yeah. I mean, The Killing Joke, when did that come out? The animated one, that was quite recent.
2016. Yeah.
So obviously he's still into it.
yeah. All these guys hang on. Like Bruce Timm and stuff, still clinging on to the Batman. You know, they all. Let's say clinging on. That sounds like a negative thing. Although some of Bruce Timm's more recent Batman fare hasn't been as warmly received. So
that's true. But actually, there's the obvious thing as well. Alan also he wrote 11 episodes of the animated series. I counted. Yeah, and produced 85 of them.
Yeah. Although a lot of those ones, then when you get into like produced by, it's like I was there when it was happening. Like,
I signed a form.
Like I got us doomed to making a freaking movie in the middle of it all.
One of my favourite facts about him when I was looking him up was he wrote 60 episodes of The Smurfs. I imagine he did that in an afternoon.
Yeah, the thing with the Smurfs, like just write the word Smurf over and over. It's like, what's Smurfing happening? What's Smurfing? Smurf is It's like, oh, there you go. That's a scheme right there.
I don't want to insult him, but it's got to be a bit of an easier job than working on Batman, right?
I don't know. You have to think of different reasons every time why Gargamel still can't find the Smurfs village and why they keep getting captured by him, going to his house for some reason.
Yeah. You got to come up with very convoluted ways. It keeps happening on loop. He did work on a lot of other 80s classics as well. I say classics, I mean, to me they are. I don't know. GoBots, Gummy Bears, Snorks, DuckTales, Chip and Dale.
Yeah, I was looking at his IMDb myself, and it's just got he's got like a line of like shows, including Batman, which has a great theme tune, but he's got some of the catchiest theme tunes of people of our generation's childhoods popping out, because again, like Chip and Dale, DuckTales, Gummy Bears, everywhere.
I don't fully remember the GoBots one, but I remember I liked it at the time.
And the one that really bugs me because it's too much of an earworm is the Freakazoid theme tune.
Oh yeah, Freakazoid. Oh God, remember that?
Yeah, because Freakazoid is like I'm sure everyone remembers Freakazoid to some extent, but it's basically they had Tiny Toons Adventures and Animaniacs, and then the other thing that all those people made was Freakazoid, the same kind of thing. And I really liked it, but it didn't get seeing it as much. It didn't seem to get as much airing as Animaniacs and stuff did back in the day. But yeah, the theme tune, it's incredibly. I dare not sing it on air unless you get it stuck into your head. So I've had times in the past where I've had it like properly burrowed in, and I've been like, I just can't get this Freakazoid theme out of my freaking mind. But it's but yeah, so I don't know if he's got the touch. Alan Burnett's like, yeah, everything I'm in. Oh, yeah. They give a really catchy theme tune too for some reason.
Let's get him on the pod, and we're going to go places, people.
Yeah, but yeah, so other things, which is like, well, most notably is like mid '80s, he was on Super Friends, which of course, because that's his beginning of the relationship with Batman, because the Cape Crusader himself's right there. And yeah, the big thing he began working on, the new Scooby and Scrappy Doo show.
Which one's that? That's not the one where they introduce Scrappy, is it?
No, I think it would have been like when they thought like people like Scrappy, right? We'll put him in the title.
Hey, I did as a kid because I was stupid and like, yeah, okay, it was targeted to people my age. But as soon as you get slightly older, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
What's the next credit? I've got Martin Pasco as well.
Yeah, or Pasco. I've written down Pasco.
Yeah, I might have written it down wrong. Let's see. Pasco, yes, you're correct. Why have I written it down like that? Martin Pasco. And he's another one who's worked on loads of big things. I remember this being massive, right? But I was never into it. One of my mates at school was Bucky O'Hare.
Oh, another amazing theme tune. That will get stuck in there. But yeah, I used to really love Bucky O'Hare back in the day. Yeah.
Well, and also the Tick.
Oh, yeah, the So you're going to go through every credit, have to sing the theme tune.
You've got to every single time. Now, this one, I don't remember this one, but it's got one of the greatest titles ever. He worked on Cadillacs and Dinosaurs.
Oh, if you look up Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, though, it tries to. Apparently, it was co-created by Steven D'Souza, the guy who made friggin' Die Hard and stuff like. But it's supposed to be like, no, it's like an ecological commentary. Like it's kind of like Captain Planet. It's like, it's called Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, man. Like,
it sounds like it's going to be like Tammy and the T-Rex or something.
If only.
And he worked on with Steve Gerber. He worked on Thundar the Barbarian. Yeah,
I think it was Alan Burnett too. Worked on what are they called? Goltar and the Golden Lance. And there's like. They're all out in the mid-'80s, and they're all just after Masters of the Universe came out. So it's like, I wonder if this the Barbarian is also a giveaway of like, well, we're also ripping off another property.
Just rip them all off. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I guess some of those ones, though, people bring up some things like, remember Ulysses 33? I'm like, I saw reruns of it when I was like 18, when it was, like, but I didn't know. But yeah, Thundar the Barbarian is the other thing that was. I'm certain there are people out there who are like, oh, it was my every Saturday morning was about Thundar.
I do remember it. I remember the name, but I don't remember anything about it. But one I do is he worked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Or over here, of course, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles in the UK.
Yes, of course. Yeah, things like that, because Martin Pasco, though, didn't just begin in TV, though. Like, he actually had a lengthy stint in comics. Like, he's a proper he's like a comic guy. Like, his origin story there is pretty funny, to be fair. Like, basically he and I'm not supporting this as a methodology.
Oh god.
But he just used to write fan letters to DC Comics all the time, but they were always perceived as being like a bit critical. And so he kind of got, apparently then one of the editors, Julius Schwartz, who we've mentioned the show several times, dubbed him Pesky Pasco, because every time they get a letter from Martin Pasco, apparently whose real name is Jean-Claude Rochefort.
Oh, that's cool.
Why would you change it to Martin Pasco? Like, what's the appeal there? Yeah. But and it's like people in America really hated the French for a bit,
which is hilarious when you consider how vital the French were in actually founding the country.
Yeah, I mean that's any kind of prejudice towards most people can be like, well, it doesn't make any sense if you think about it in any way. Really,
makes even less sense though. I mean, they were literally allies, like fighting against the British.
Yeah,
you'd think, they bloody have a town named after Lafayette.
But yeah,
city,
whatever.
Actually,
I don't know. Maybe because he was Canadian. Because he's Canadian. Maybe he's like, I don't want them to know I'm Canadian, so he sneaked in. Martin Pasco. That sounds like American, right? But yeah, so he just kept writing these letters, and then started pitching his own stories under the advice of his friend, who was like, well, the thing is, if you keep pestering them and kind of like bugging them in the letters pages, when they see your name pop up in the pile of like people sending in like unsolicited storylines and stuff to them, they'll be like, oh, it's that guy. And I think he was taking it to the nth extreme of like, they'll be like, oh, it's this dickhead. Let's see what he's got, and to see if we can finally stick one to him.
Oh, and they'll actually look at it. Yeah,
they'll actually probably read it and be like, what's this? Like, oh, wait, no, it's quite good. Okay, yeah. And so that's how he got hired by DC Comics, was like, just kept writing them letters going on about like, well, I thought this kind of stunk. And then sending in a thing, making them go like, all right, dip, let's see what you got. And then they're like, okay, you can. So he worked on Superman for like a long, long time, like 1973 onwards. So he went on. He was big wheel down at the Dr. Fate factory, and then jumping in here to Batman, like not just any Batman, but like the seminal Batman animated series and stuff. And then one of the people freaking on board creating the greatest Batman movie of all time. So yeah, that. Again, I don't want to give people ideas.
Well,
but
we're used to that tactic. That's what people do to podcasters.
So please don't go into the listener's cave and just start giving. Well, I thought your sound there sounded a bit good.
People do that. People.
Yeah. So listen here, dip.
Oh no, we love you all, really. We do. But I mean, the most important thing he worked on, of course, was My Little Pony. Though you forgot to mention that. I was an OG brony, back in the. Let me think. It must have probably. No, I don't want to say late 80s. Maybe it was late 80s, early 90s at least. I was collecting the My Little Ponies.
But yeah, so Martin Pasco, of course, tragically died in 2020. Don't think it was in any way covert, but every time you say someone died in 2020, you're like, I don't think it had anything to do with the pandemic, but you never know. It could have done. One of many people involved in this film, unfortunately, very tragically, passed away. So we're going to be doing a lot of R.I.P. More R.I.P.s than probably any other, because pretty much everybody involved in the first two seasons is still alive. So.
Yeah.
And there's only Joel Schumacher, and he died mid-production of us making a Batman season. So this is our first season, appropriate enough, I guess, considering the Phantasm's there. It's been sort of mired in death in a weird way.
Oh yeah, that's what we're all about. This is a goth podcast now, as if it wasn't already being, with Tim Burton.
Yeah, but we were stuck in Schumacherville there for quite some time. So.
We're back to goth, baby.
It's all the camps out now. This is a serious podcast for serious people. Although that's we should also mention too, because we had the title of the movie pop up there earlier. Should also note that not the original title of Mask of the Phantasm was not the original title, as it's on the final draft of the script. It's simply called Masks.
That would work better as an episode of the show, with a title like that. I think.
I can totally imagine one of the the title cards they always had, the very gothic, very sort of artisanal title cards. They're totally imagine there, but just Batman Masks as a film title is even as a comic title, it wouldn't jump out to people. But
imagine
Mask
that,
of the Phantasm.
when you go to the cinema and you see that on a poster. I don't know. It just
it really is. It's who's the Phantasm? What's the deal? I've never heard of the Phantasm before. It's don't you want to find out who it is?
It's almost got a Star Wars quality to the title. I think like Phantom Menace and things like that. Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah,
Star Wars Episode 58. I was most upset to then see that this is based on characters created by DC Comics and Bob Kane. I thought it was a true story.
I do think that that phrasing though, based on the characters from DC Comics, it had more of a hand wavy kind of quality to it's not. It's based on the DC comic characters. Yeah, it's just it's based on the thing. It's,
you know what it is.
Yeah, there's other ones who always have based on Batman created by Bob Kane, or based on the characters created for DC Comics. It always has sort of a very dignified way of saying it, but then based on the DC comic characters, it's let's just come on, just get on with the movie, man.
Well, that's what this movie does, though. It's right, we're going move. It's fast. I'm going to talk about it as we go through. I actually think that's one criticism I had was that this movie, I think it could be 20 minutes longer. I think some of it's a little bit too fast. I think you could spend more time on the relationships and things, which, again, kids wouldn't like. So I get why they cut it. But I'm just talking about now my enjoyment levels. I need another 20 minutes.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't complain if they had another 20 minutes. I know there was a deleted scene. We'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, it does, I wouldn't complain at all. But maybe their thing is just we're used to making 22-minute episodes. So asking us to bump it up to feature length, it's this is all we got. This is it. This is what we're used to working with.
Well, our episode here is going to be longer than usual, so apologies, listeners. But you know what? We've had a long break, and we're back with a lot of info to drop on you from minute one. So this is going to be the longest one.
Yeah. I know, of course, then we do end on Bob Kane. Again, it's to see it every time you see him, yeah, you're back again, are you, Bob?
We've talked about him so much. I was I'm not going to diss him again.
I was trying to look into how much time because I know he was on set every day for Batman and Robin and stuff. He was deeply involved in the Schumacher of it all. I was I don't know what his opinion of the animated series was. And there's not a lot of it, but he does appear on little documentaries about it, but they just kind of wheel them out to do the usual, like, so I invented Batman entirely by myself one day when I was sitting alone and nobody else came and told me anything about it. And I drew a guy in a red outfit with big bat wings, and now I turned him and originally he used guns and then he didn't use guns, and that's Batman. And you're like, that's just what you say, Bob. Like, we just bring him out. It's like, Bob, explain Batman. It's like, well, I invented Batman back here. But then I think if they asked him anything about this movie or the show, he'd be like, they don't tell me anything. I think they probably want me to keep me as far away from it as they possibly can.
No, I like the idea that he was there in the animator's studio every day, leaning over their shoulder, just like, yep.
Apparently, that was the way they did a lot of designs for it. It was like during Batman Returns, because obviously it was in production when Batman Returns was being made. So they were there, like Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and everyone was just like sitting in the corner of Stan Winston's workshop. Danny DeVito getting his penguin outfit on, going, just drawing a little sketch of him going like, nah, rip that one out and doing a little like, okay, looks good. See you, Danny. And then just walking away and then like, I'll see you guys. But, do you want me to voice the cat? No, we don't want it. Our penguin is nothing like your penguin.
It's all good. Fine. No, don't worry.
Except for contractual obligations to make him a little bit like your penguin, which you can tell as it goes on. Because, like, when they do the revamp, he looks nothing like Danny DeVito. Because they're very clearly like, we didn't want him to look like Danny DeVito in the first place.
I did, but they didn't.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a difference. We talked about that, of course, back in Batman It Returns, because we talked a lot about the penguin.
So go and listen to that season.
Yeah. Before we come back for episode 2 of this already very long episode.
But we knew this was going to be long. You know, it's our first one in a while, and it's right in there with a lot of credits. So I don't mind. We've touched on important information to get the season underway. But I'm noted out.
Yeah, I'm noted out as well. I'm raring to go in the minute too. But and into the whole. I'm looking to take a bite out of this mask of this phantasm. I'm looking to finally unmask this phantasm. So.
Oh yeah. Do speak to us on Facebook at the Bat-Minute Listeners Cave, Twitter at Bat-Minute, Instagram the Bat-Minute. And why don't you go to our network, Sleepy Charlie Media, on Patreon, where you can get bonus episodes, a lot of which are about Batman things. So it's all there for you.
Not a lot. We covered every episode of Wednesday just recently. So.
And that was a lot of fun. We ended up enjoying that, even though it wasn't the best show ever. We enjoyed it.
I think that was the whole thing. It's like, I hope it gets to season 2 because I just want to record more episodes about it.
Well, do all of that, and why don't you review us on iTunes or whatever app that lets you review? I think you can review on Podcast Addict now, directly. So do that. And
not in a pesky Pasco way. Don't come on going like, yeah, well, I think these guys are pricks. And frankly, they should hire me to be on their show.
To be honest, I do hate it when podcasters say this, but I'm going to say it as well. Unless you're doing 5 stars, don't bother.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, there's no point. It's 5 stars, or if you hate us with a passion, I suppose, 1 star. Anything in between, it's kind of pointless for the algorithm, to be honest. So just go give us 5.
I think that's all those things. I remember like when I recently bought a tablet finally, like a proper tablet. And for drawing and stuff. And I just remember the guy in the shop and like, okay, so you get a message about like reviewing the guy who sold it to you. And I'm going to be honest with you, anything less than a 10 is pointless. So can you please give me a 10? I was like, yeah, sure. But the fact that he was just like, I'm not going to mess around. I know there's a lot of numbers, but if it's slightly below a 10, then that's bad news for me. So
I like that honesty.
Yeah. Unless he was actually being, he's like, oh no, you could be like anything from 6 upwards, you're fine. But he's like, no, I want to maintain my 10.
Well, I respect the hustle either way. But yes, do that. And join us again on Wednesday for more Bat-Minute of the Phantasm.
And stick around after this outro to see if we did that stinger. Next time... Holy Quarrel Cacophony, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, the animated movie. The Caped Crusader's creation is miscredited once more, as we're directed past Romano and savor Shirley's superb score. The CG cityscape soon segues into 2D animation, but which dick is millering around in a sky-high speculation station? There's clandestine casinos and colorful vocal cameos. Next time, Bat-Minute mates. Same Bat Pod, different Bat-Minute.
Emas top. Stiefel Tabby Tonne.